Alright. Hey, I'm Aqua or Aquarius of Fallen Snow if you don't know me. Welcome to this episode of my podcast, The Shit Shooting Gallery. Happy to have you back if you've been here before. So, somebody recently left a comment on my TikTok asking me what I think about universal basic income, and I hadn't put too much thought into it. I've heard about it before, but I hadn't really done too much research. But in thinking about it, I was thinking, yeah, it sounds like a pretty good idea. I think it would work. I think it could be beneficial. So, in this episode, I would like to go in depth on that. But before I get into that, I'll talk a bit about my day first. I was pretty active today. I put the first and second coat of white paint on the ceiling in the second guest room, and I did about an hour of walking. I think I walked 4K on the treadmill. So that was pretty cool. If you want to see more of that, I have footage of it in the vlog that I should be putting up soon. I don't know when that vlog specifically is going to go up compared to this podcast, but definitely check out the channel for the other vlogs that I have been putting up so far in my trip here in Quebec, right? But yeah, I've been feeling good. I am going to be heading back to Ontario on Wednesday. Today is Sunday. So I'm just finishing up recording a bit more content, trying to get some more footage for the vlogs before I head back home. And then once I'm back in Ontario, then it'll probably be I don't know. I'll try to start vlogging in Ontario, but we'll see how much I get done, and maybe it'll be a means of motivating me to get more stuff done and to get out of my apartment more, That would be pretty great. The trip up here has been pretty good. I've been getting a lot done on the rooms and just thinking about the next steps of my life. Again, if you want to see that, it's in the past vlogs that I put up. But let's get into talking about the real meat and potatoes here. I don't know how much time I have before dinner. I think I only have around half an hour now. But let's talk about universal basic income, right? First, I have the definition here that I looked up before recording. So it is a social welfare proposal where every citizen regularly receives a minimum income unconditionally without means of test or work, right? And I think there's a few questions that have to be brought up in terms of this, right? And if you want to see my initial thoughts, on a comment, I did a 5-minute video that I put up on TikTok and then I put it up on my channel as well. And it's titled My Thoughts on UBI, Universal Basic Income, and Society as a Whole. But I think there are some important questions we have to ask about universal basic income, right? Like, how much would be too much money or not enough money, right? Where is the money coming from, and then where is it going when people get it? Where are they spending the money, basically? And then I feel like another important question is, what does that mean for society as a whole? And I wrote down a few kind of ballpark numbers, just what came to my head, just what came to my mind, thinking about it more in-depthly. And if I was trying to calculate out, what would be not enough money or what would be too much money, I feel like ballpark numbers, 250 to 500, wouldn't be enough because it would just get eaten up right away by rent and groceries, and there wouldn't really be any extra movement. It would basically just be like what people get already, right? I think a good amount could be ballpark again, between 800 to 1250, and I'll go into my breakdown of the cost of stuff after. But I think too much would be like 2,500 plus. Then you're really taking the incentive off working, taking a lot of the pressures off of people, which, would be good in a sense, and it puts more emphasis on voluntary work. But then my mom made a good point too, that it would have to be introduced slowly over time, and you can't just bombard the economy with everybody getting a whole bunch more money than they usually do, right? You'd have to kind of work it up and get to a good level over time, and maybe that's how we figure out how much is too much or not enough, by increasing it till we see those levels and then bring it back a little bit, maybe, right? But if I go into the breaking down of costs of stuff, I think one bedroom apartment nowadays, you're looking at like 800 on the super low end to 2500 in Toronto and Hamilton area. It really depends on the population of the area and, the population of your province or state, of course, your country. But here in Canada and Ontario, that's kind of the prices we're looking at. I would say groceries would be 300 to 600. So on the low end there, 8, 9, 10, 11, that would be 1100 to 2500 plus 600 on the high end. So like 3100 right there, right? And that's just the super basic stuff, food and shelter, right? But then if we keep going, then you can add on internet, phone bills. Internet, ours is like around 110 a month. And this is all monthly costs and monthly payments, right? Phone bills could be like 50 on the low end if people aren't paying off their phones. If they are paying off their phones still, it could be up to 150, maybe even like 200, depending on some people's plans. I'm not 100% sure. And then you could bring up a car and how much you have to pay in gas, insurance, maintenance, parking, all that kind of stuff, right? And then, yeah, I was saying like, could 1250 help sustain people more without like a car, without a vehicle, But then you could also include people's habits, because this is an important factor as well. I said like 200 to 300 a month for basic habits. Could be caffeine, sugar, fast food, people going out for lunch or food, getting their morning coffee, whatever it is. The habits or substances with moderate risk would be like alcohol, weed, and tobacco, right? And then obviously high risk would be like hard drugs, right? So then where would this money come from, right? I think we would definitely have to look at businesses and go, okay, the most profitable businesses, can you pay 5 or 10% in taxes of your profits, overall profits, to this program to help pay back the astronomical amounts of money they make from consumers, right? And if that's free money, guess what? That money is going to go back into those companies anyways, right? Especially big ones like grocery store chains, the essentials, the gas stations, all that stuff, right? And then obviously when you're talking about taxation, can we make it obviously low taxation on the lower income class, and then the highest taxation on the highest earning companies or people, and then maybe even have a limit. Like if you're breaking 99 million, okay, maybe you're going to start facing 75% tax, and it sounds shitty and crazy, but it's to promote people not trying to get to that level, because why do you need all that money? Because I feel like at that point, if you have that much money, you're just paying for everything, you're really not doing the work like average people. That is going to make you more lazy than the people who are working their ass off and can't even afford to survive, right? So yeah, could it come from income tax? Could it come from taxation? And obviously you're going to push businesses and companies out, but I feel like that should almost be worldwide government standard to impose caps on businesses or price inflation, whatever it is, to not allow for this billionaire possibility, because most of these billionaires and millionaires aren't even making the money themselves. Some of them are, I respect it, some of them are, but a lot of them, the Bezoses and the Elon Musks and the Trumps, are born into nepotism and elite rich families already, so they already have access to that. And then if you watch my video on pathocracy, I also explain how if kids are growing up in situations where they're around rich people all the time, or their family has a lot more money than average people, already they're more around these traits of psychopathy, narcissism, sociopathy, all of that, right? Which leads back to this whole rich people are lizards or eat the rich movement. Like, Because it's almost like it is kind of a mental disorder when all you're focusing on is profit or capital gains from your investments, you know? But again, what does universal basic income mean for society as a whole, right? And in my TikTok video, or in my 5-minute video earlier, I was talking about how, yeah, it would relieve a lot of the stresses from our modern colonial capitalist society, right? Like, if people are working 2 or 3 jobs and they still can't afford to sustain themselves, obviously there's a problem that some basic income assistance or living assistance, whatever, would help with, right? Then maybe people could focus more on one job, go full-time with that job, and truly dedicate time to a career path, right? Also, with universal basic income, who would that benefit the most, right? So who benefits the most, right? It's the average people, especially students and new mothers. People who have to stay at home to either take care of themselves or other people, their dependents, or they're focusing on their career path and learning and knowledge, so they're helping the community still, right? We want people to be educated, and I think this comes back to most people are gonna say they want what's best for themselves and their kids and their community, right? So most people are gonna say they want their kids to have a good education, be able to afford and buy a house, be able to take care of themselves and sustain themselves. But then we talk about this free market economy, but people don't want to acknowledge the fact that we're in late game capitalism, where it's basically like playing a game of Monopoly, where all the people, like very few elite rich people, have all the hotels, properties, and all the money, and nobody can pay their rent, right? Can we change it to more of a game of soccer, where everybody's running around, kicking the ball around, somebody gets hit and does the fake, like, oh, I'm hurt, oh, and we're all looking like, okay, well, obviously you're faking, get up. Like, if you're genuinely hurt, we'll come over and help you, but if it's just for the penalty, just get up, you know? Can we change, you know how they say don't hate the player, hate the game? Can we change the game a little bit? You know what I mean? So I also took the time to ask Perplexity AI, what are the pros and cons to universal basic income, right? Because I can give you my opinion on it, but again, it's from a point of bias, right? So let me try to go to an unbiased, pretty intellectual source, because it's taken all the information out there, right? So it says, universal basic income is a policy proposal that involves providing all citizens with a regular, unconditional cash payment. It has sparked significant debate due to its potential benefits and drawbacks. So the pros of universal basic income could be poverty reduction and economic security. UBI can alleviate poverty by guaranteeing a basic income to all citizens, especially benefiting the most vulnerable groups, right? Something my mom was saying too is that instead of having all these different disability, unemployment, pension, retirement funds, all these things, just combine them all in one, make it one basic thing, and then there's less governance for that, right? Sure, you lose some government jobs or company jobs trying to figure all the benefits out, but wouldn't that make it easier too, right? Simplify it. Also in that point it says it reduces income inequality and provides financial stability, particularly during economic downturns, by stimulating customer spending. Right? That's a pretty good point right there. It is a simplification of the welfare system, like I just said. It could streamline welfare programs by replacing complex means-tested benefits, reducing administrative costs and bureaucracy. Also, pretty good. Improving health and well-being. By reducing financial stress, UBI may improve physical and mental health outcomes for recipients. Yeah, people getting less burnout from working these jobs and not getting paid enough, right? And then also having more time and energy to go do the things they love, which would also stimulate the economy and people's just enjoyment of life. And right here, encouragement of entrepreneurship. A guaranteed income allows individuals to take risks, pursue education, or start businesses without fear of losing financial stability. Also pretty good for local economies, right? And then it goes to gender equality. UBI can help reduce gender inequality by supporting unpaid caregivers who are often women. Nice, right? And then the sixth and final point that it gave is economic growth. Increased consumer spending from UBI could stimulate economic growth and innovation. Which also sounds good, right? But I guess those are all the pros. Let's look at the cons now. It says high cost. Implementing UBI is expensive. Estimates for the US suggest costs ranging from $2 trillion to $3.9 trillion annually, which could strain government budget and require higher taxes or cuts to other services. I think this 100% should come directly from the richest people in the economy, right? Because why would the government pay for this when it's of the people for the people? And I understand they should implement this, but they are also not the richest people. Now we can debate that with lobbying and the bureaucracy of the system where, all these big companies are paying off the politicians, through lobbyists to just get, so the businesses and the companies, corporations get their way, and that's usually tax cuts, right? So maybe we have to hold our politicians more accountable and the system as a whole. Let's go to the second point here, work disincentives. Critics argue that UBI might reduce the motivation to work, potentially harming economic productivity and increasing dependency on government support. And see, I also think that's a very important point to mention, is that this money should be put directly towards people reinvesting in themselves and their lives to become more self-sufficient, right? Less reliant on the system, which I know is ironic to say, but could it be to get to a point of people being less reliant on the system? Like it said, if they become entrepreneurs, these people who are wanting to work and start businesses, be their own bosses, would that not stimulate the economy, right? And obviously it goes both ways. There are some people who, sure, if they get a little bit of money, or if they get enough money, they won't want to work. But then that's why we have to ask the question, what is too much and what is not enough, right? So the third point it mentions for the cons, inefficiency in poverty reduction. UBI provides money to everyone, including high earners, which could divert resources away from those who need it most. This approach may fail to address specific needs like healthcare or addiction treatment. Right, and I feel like, okay, can we put it, like, if you're making more than 200,000 or 300,000 a year, you're not gonna get UBI, you know what I mean? Like, it's a payment threshold, right? Like, I feel like that's a pretty dumb point right there. Like, oh, but then the richest people are gonna get money too. No, can we take the money from the richest people who already have all the money, That's the whole point of making it more equal. Okay, number 4 is inflation risk, which we kind of talked about already, but injecting large sums of money into the economy could lead to inflation, raising the cost of essential goods and services, and offsetting UBI's benefits. Obviously, I think that's also an issue with the government needing to put these caps in place for inflation or for profit making to reduce the inequality, because if we get to a point where there's no millionaires and billionaires anymore, then the wealth is going to be more evenly distributed, we would hope, to the point where, okay, maybe then we won't need universal basic income, or it'll just be so, it'll just be such a regular thing at that point in the future that everybody's like, okay, yeah, we're good with no millionaires or billionaires, everybody's getting the basic whatever, and we're all working still, right? And that goes back to the point about you have to slowly introduce it into the economy, not just drop it all at once, right? The 5th point here is philosophical concerns. Some critics question whether money should be a birthright, arguing that it undermines the principles of earning an income through work or contributions to society. Right, so can we make the incentive less about money and more about the voluntary work and wanting to do stuff because you genuinely want to? You know what I mean? I don't know, it makes me laugh. But the last point, the sixth point in the cons here, regional disparities. The impact of UBI might not be evenly distributed across regions, particularly in large countries with diverse economic conditions like Canada. That's the whole point of universal basic income, is that everybody gets it, and then it should even out the economy, right? Take the money from the highest earners, from the 1%, the 0.1 of the 1%, and bring it back down how it should be. While UBI offers promising solutions for poverty reduction and economic security, its feasible is hindered by cost concerns, potential work disincentives, and questions about its ability to address targeted needs efficiently. And again, I think it's about making a system that works for everyone, right? Taking the best parts of every system, combining it for something that works for the most people, right? Right now, it only works for 1% of people, and it shows. So can we make it work better for 99% of people, you know? But yeah, I'm curious to know what you guys think about the concept, and I think I've addressed most of the most important points about UBI, and I think for the average person, the hardest workers in society, because people work more than governments or big businesses do, right? Corporations. And I mean that like the CEOs and the stakeholders, right? The people sitting in the offices, making the laws and the rules, but who aren't actually out on the floor or out on the front lines of the workforce, actually doing the work. Obviously, those are the people that need to be prioritized the most, right? And I want to do another video after this where I'm going to look at society and kind of break it down in terms of, okay, what are the most important points? What do we need, right? It's going to be basic human shit, housing, farming, like food, and all this stuff. Break it down into the jobs, construction, farming, stores, whatever, right? And I'll show people, like, these are all the jobs that could still be here. Just keep going, but with less of a monetary incentive and more of a communist, socialist, egalitarian perspective, right? Voluntary work because it needs to be done, right? And then move to stuff like running water, internet, these different industries. But I think dinner's about to hit the table, so I should stop this one here for now. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and drop a comment of what you think, and subscribe, not only to help us build the community, but so you don't miss one of my videos in the future. That being said, I hope you liked this video. I'll leave it here for now, but like I say in all my videos, I love you, stay safe, good luck, and take it easy.